Data is the lifeblood of any business looking to thrive and excel today. All organizations, from the bakery down the street to the banks at the center of the city's financial district, are somewhere on the journey to unlocking the value of that data. Collectively, there's a massive amount of data constantly being used, stored, and processed. In this fireside chat session, to throw more light on the importance of data and data protection, we have with us Justice B. N. Srikrishna, Head Data Protection Committee, and Mr. Ripu Bajwa, Director Sales and General Manager, Data Protection Solutions at Dell Technologies. Welcome, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Justice Srikrishna. Sir, how do you view the value of data in today's context? How can it help in exploring new opportunities to increase customer loyalty, bring new services to market, or compete more effectively?
Thank you, Ashwinder. Data is, after all, a means to an end. Data is not an end by itself. So like any means, the value of the means depends on the end result that you're going to achieve. Now, whether it is a knife or a gun or any other car, what is it that you're going to ultimately achieve is very important. Now, data can, you're right, if you're talking of customers and business enterprises, what do they do with the data? They can keep track of their customers. Then they can evaluate their habits. They, for example, in Amazon, what kind of things do I buy there? Or a bookshop, what kind of books do I read? So next time I go on to that, I will get a new book is there. Then they will say, all right, here is a book you're fond of reading, philosophy. Here's a book on philosophy. Or if I'm reading literature, here's a book on literature. If it's a question of clothing stores, they will say, last time you bought a jacket from me, we got a new jacket. So that helps in satisfaction of the customer, because the customer otherwise every time would have to either go personally to a shop or go to an online website and then find out what are the available material there. Instead of that, the whole process is reversed. The person who wants to sell can himself ideally think of what are the customer's needs and cater to it from time to time. Now, this is the good side of data because it adds value to the customer's needs. It adds value to the business enterprise. It helps them boost the market. And also it builds up the market for everybody's benefit. Now, the flip side of that is data can be helpful in, profiling a person. Now, if it's in the hands of a state which is very hostile to you, they can profile you on the basis of your thinking, political thinking, your religious thinking, or your other habits, and then subject you to all kinds of restrictions. That is why in a democratic country, it is always essential that data is left to the control of the person whose data it is, whom we call the data principal. And the bottom line is nobody should be allowed to take away my data unless I'm willing to part with it. Now, I may be willing to part with even my sensitive data. If I'm willing to part with it, nobody can have an objection. Now, for example, the medical records, it's very sensitive. Now, if I'm not willing to part with it, nobody else should have a right to take it, unless, of course, there are exceptional circumstances which can be enumerated in a properly laid legislation. That is the way I look at the value of data in today's circumstances, both from the point of being good as well as bad. Ultimately, as I said, a means or an instrument is only as good or as bad as you use it. That's my take on your question.
Sure, sir. Moving on to you, Ripu. Like sir said, data is both good and bad. Your thoughts on this, the value of data?
Thank you, Yash. And thank you, sir, for your opening remarks. It's a privilege. It's a real privilege to be in front of you, and a matter of honor as well for me. So, Yash, I kind of definitely agree. Data is to be in the control of the person who's the principal. Great examples shared by sir. In my view, today, if you see, data is actually data first is now the business strategy and more like the business itself today. The current situations have really explained that how organizations have adopted themselves, become much more online, gone after all the critical data services, and been serving the nation. This is a true example of how transformation and digital transformation has played out. I would definitely say that in current context, data and the information assets which people have, uh, data security and data privacy take a paramount role. And therefore, like Sir mentioned, um, it's your personal data, the way you want to use it, it is in your custody. Sensitive data, definitely, you would like certain information to be passed on to certain people who you can trust and they can serve you. Similarly, in organizations, organizations today have expanded their roles beyond their boundaries. They have a larger ecosystem. They have a large set of partners, large set of suppliers with whom they really have to interact. They'll have to open their systems. It's all about sharing the information in a secure manner, much faster manner, so that the access is available from various data sources. You can actually get the information very fast. Applications are being rolled out from all on-prem, off-prem world. Cloud and multi-cloud has become a true reality. However, the security is also as important. The increasing number of threats that we are witnessing today across the board is really increasing. We are witness to some of them. The role of data protection, therefore, and the necessary laws around it, they are now much more paramount, and one has to, as businesses, also align to it, both for their own safety and customers' data safety. So it's very important that we look at the holistic view of data, how it is going to drive innovation, the new business models, the new way to access data. Today, people are working from anywhere, remote workers. That's where the organizations have taken themselves to, right in the periphery. And those are the vulnerable points today for the threat actors. We have to be vigilant as how we are exposing our employees, users to such mode of access, because any amount of compromise here will be very, very drastic. It can take a very different proportion. So we have to balance, the fact that, yes, we have to connect everybody, but we also have to increase the risk posture. We have to make sure that risk alignment is there.
Sure, Ripu. So coming back to you, sir, Srikrishna, sir, like Ripu said, it's important to have a holistic view of data. But if you look at today, data is distributed across the edge, the core, and the cloud. So the question, therefore, is, which is increasingly becoming vital, is where is my data and is it protected? So what are your thoughts on this?
That is why you need a strong data protection law. The law will give the handle back to the person whose data it is. Now see, one of these things is the purpose limitation doctrine. Now if somebody wants my data, I tell him, all right, I need something from you for this purpose only. I'm giving you thus far and no further. Now this purpose limitation is something that you hedge the data in. Now if I go to, as I give an example, I go to buy a clothes shop. I want to buy some garments. Now he will take out my data. I will ask my email ID, my telephone number, my address, probably sometimes even locality, whatever it is. But if all that is going to be used for the purpose for which he has taken, namely for making good use of giving me good garments, I have no problem. But if he were to use it for something else and starts giving me, mailing me items of unnecessary things which I'm not interested, that is beyond the doctrine of purpose. So that is where, first of all, as the person whose data you are taking, that is why we called him the data principal. And the person who uses my data is called the data fiduciary. Fiduciary because I'm giving data to him on the basis of trust. And the trust is, I am giving you for a particular purpose and I trust you that you will not use it for anything other than that purpose. Number one. Number two is where it is located. See, the problem with data storage is, now it's not like a water supply line that there is a hole in that and the data starts leaking out. Data will not leak unless two things happen. One is there is human intervention, which can be by way of hacking. Or there is human intervention like the person who is manually dealing with the data operations leaks it. Otherwise, machine itself is not going to leak it like a water pipe. Therefore, all cyber security measures must be intended to ensure A, that there is hacker proof as far as possible. I'm quite aware that there can't be anything like a 100% solution. Even Pentagon's computer has been hacked. So you can't have a better cyber security than the Pentagon's supercomputers. So to the best that is available, to the best of the edge of technical knowledge that we have in the country at any given time, you should be able to protect data. Number two, when you allow people to manually handle data by way of operating the computers or servers, you should ensure that if there is a leakage, the leakage can easily be traced back. It's like having a proper accountancy system where the auditor can immediately say the money has been handled by X and X is responsible for its leakage. I mean, it's like handling cash in a bank. Of course, I don't compare them to what has happened to our banks today. I'm talking of a proper bank. So if that is done, it always leaves a trail. And that trail, when you do that, that is an exercise that is absolutely necessary. Now, third question that you asked was, where is it? Is it lying on some cloud? Of course, cloud is a symbolic representation of some server somewhere. Or is it available within the country? On that, there has been a controversy. The idea was that the sensitive data, now two types of data. One would, of course, be what is called the absolute core data of very important personalities. Now, that is more than sensitive. Now, for example, the data of a person who holds a very high position like President of India or the Prime Minister or the Chief Justice of India. I don't see any reason why it should lie in somebody else's server somewhere across the world. Now, otherwise, for the rest of the citizens or the rest of the residents, it could lie anywhere within this country or outside the country. When we headed the committee, we made a recommendation for one reason, that if a situation arises where the state needs to have access to the personal data for some reason, and I'm assuming that it's a good reason, valid reason, constitutionally it can be upheld. In that case, if you have to access the data on a server which is abroad, it would be impossible. Even under these mutual assistance legal treaties, it would take somewhere roughly about 2 years. They worked it out and told us that it takes about 18 months to 2 years. Now, supposing you are chasing a terrorist and his data is to be accessed under a valid constitutional law. Now, how are you going to do? You can't wait for 2 years till the whole process is escalated from level of executive to the judicial to the diplomatic level and then transmitted across the other country and comes back the same way. It is just not workable. Therefore, it was suggested that you keep one live copy of it. The reason being that whoever keeps the live copy on the territory of this country is answerable to the investigating authorities and the laws of this country and the courts of this country. The jurisdiction is ours. Otherwise, the person sitting in a country abroad will say, I'm not in your jurisdiction, I'm not bound to answer your questions. If you don't have an extradition like treaty, like something like extradition, if you don't have an extradition treaty, a person may sit there and you won't have any access to him. You will be totally out of it. Now, what is happening in Antigua will happen there also. Therefore, we had suggested that tell me where you are keeping it. If it is sensitive data, please don't take it away without my consent. And now the draft bill that has been submitted says that you can process sensitive data on a server abroad, but you must keep a live copy here. I don't think they have really understood the difficulty that was pointed out and the solution that was pointed out. Of course, from the point of view of business enterprises, which are particularly multinational enterprises, they preferred that the data should be accessible to them at their own headquarters or wherever their servers are located. But look at it from the point of view of the country. After all, this law is being made for the benefit of the citizens and residents of this country. Therefore, if you look at it from this point of view, the law should definitely say that you have this under my control so that if access becomes necessary, I have it available to me. And the last point that I wish to make is massive data is being churned out in today's enterprises. Now, if all this is to be made available let's say my data is being taken by the enterprise. I'm interested in this data being subjected to data analytics so that some kind of solutions can be found. No, I have no access to it. Even I have to ask somebody else. It's supposing it's in America or England or Germany somewhere. I have no access to it. But if it is available here in the country, then I can say I'm the person whose data you have taken. I'm the data principal. You utilize this data for this purpose. I'm agreeing to this. That will produce value for the country. That also is not going to be there. And there is no, it's not an easy task to get this data. And my data, if it is sitting in Timbuktu, I have no access to it. That was the reason why he said that where is my data located? Under what circumstances is it retrievable at my instance or retrievable at the instance of the state even without my consent under exceptional circumstances? These are questions which become important.
Sure, sir.
Look at data only from the point of view of market economy. We have to look at it from the point of view of the country's administration also. What happens to the citizens in circumstances where it becomes necessary to access the data. That is why, if you remember in that Kutteswamy judgment, Supreme Court said that under certain circumstances, the state, meaning the government or the executive, also should be empowered to access data without the consent of the person concerned. For what purpose? For protecting his rights, for protecting the rights of all the persons. Now, if some spies come, try to do something in the country, or there is a military threat, it affects the fundamental rights of all the citizens. To protect them, you need police power. And that is where it is necessary. But then the police power is like a ferocious dog. You must keep it under control all the time. Otherwise, you can't run a democracy. It will become totally autocratic. That's the way I looked at it. And that is the way I have gone on record all along whenever people have asked me. That's my take on that.
Sure, sir. So, Ripu, from an enterprise's perspective, how can it gain visibility into the data, whether it's protected or not, given that, distributed across edge, core, cloud?
I very much agree to sir's comments. It's a fundamental right, right to privacy. And for organizations, enterprises today of all sizes, when they are dealing with the customer data within the country, they have a responsibility to take care of it and follow the laws. This is something which all organizations by default have to follow. And given the fact that there has been a lot of discussions and a lot of organizations have put across some of their challenges, they have also realized that it is important to get the data, one copy of sensitive data to be here. And if at all, any processing, as sir said, has to be done with the consent of the person. As organizations today, who have been dealing with their own data, the application data, the consumer data, to look at the telcos, the financial bodies, the new apps, everyone today is seeing the India market as the big play. Now, when it comes to important analytics, which are being done today at maybe the data centers or the clouds, finally, the delivery of these and the consumption of the data is happening at the endpoints, which are today in the control of the users. So if user is generating data at the edge, moving the data across to the distributed core and then the core data centers or the larger data centers that are there in India, and some of the pure play hybrid cloud or multi-cloud players who are also having presence in India. It is the collective responsibility of these organizations to ensure that the processing and the storage of data is as per the laws. So today organizations have reviewed and there have been laws. The European GDPR has shown companies who are dealing in those countries, they have already adopted measures to see how are they complying to that. Right to be forgotten, right to erasure, all these things are very critical. So IT and the security teams within the enterprise organizations, they are working together to make sure that as the data which is being collected from various sources, processed within the organizations and then redistributed is done with the full compliance to the laws. Today, for example, we are seeing as we deal with a lot of our customers who have move a lot of their computing to endpoint devices and they're accessing from anywhere. This is becoming even more relevant. Data which is now being generated from devices is coming onto the body which is controlling that app, the fiduciary, or for example, the social intermediate itself. We are seeing that these people will be more and more responsible with the data. At the same time, the threat actors are also increasing their play. They are attacking the most sensitive and impactful industries, be it the healthcare, be it the retail, could be certain critical supplies which are coming to various, at this time, to the medical staff, to the hospitals, to the overall livelihood of people. Those services are absolutely critical to be protected. And data which is now getting generated, if you look at the health sector, there are clinical laboratories which are doing a lot of critical and sensitive, data processing. How is that data being, what are the people process technology norms around it? If those things are also taken care of, then in the true sense, we will be in a place where we can drive innovation fearlessly. And that's the true way of driving innovation. We have to be ready to take on the threat actors. We have to be ready to be able to show recovery. It is not enough to just protect and think that you will not be attacked. Let us assume that suppose we are on that 0 day, then how do we really bounce back without paying any ransom, without paying any of these malware attacks which happen and you get compromised even on your brand and your reputation. You should be able to bounce back to business and show that recovery. Banks have already started doing this. They've been asking their IT teams to show recovery, do the DR drills in those SLAs. And that's where a lot of organizations have started to make sure they are able to show recovery. Threat actors will keep on attacking. Sir mentioned about a very nice way. You should be able to trace the threat much. You can't contain it, but you should be able to limit the damage. You should be able to contain it up to the first or the second floor and not let your critical assets get compromised. So you can move some of those critical assets to a very, very secure way, which could be your gold copies, so that you are able to bounce back to business and also align to the norms of the land.
Sure. Srikrishna sir, as the value of an enterprise's data increases, the cost of data loss increases substantially. What approach should organizations and government adopt for ensuring data protection and data recovery?
We are still debating whether there should be a Data Protection Act, what the Personal Data Protection Act, what shape it should take. Two of the departments shot the gun early. One was Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank came out with a circular and said, all financial data transacted in India shall remain in India. You remember, immediately they said, all the credit card companies raised a howl of protest. They said, it is just not possible, it's impossible, we have got data, millions of data coming in and out of the border and all that. Reserve Bank said, nothing doing, you have to do it. They gave them 3 months time. Then they said, okay, we will do it, but give us another more 3 months. And now I'm told that all the credit card companies, all the financial data is being located only on servers within India. The other entity which did this was the TRI. TRI said all mobile data which is transacted on mobiles and collected by the mobile companies, service providers, shall remain in this country. And it has been followed. There's nothing wrong in that. Now coming to your question about data security. Look, the point is, it's no better than or no worse than security of your own house. If you are doing security of your house, it depends. If you have only household furniture and that too 20 years old, what security do you don't care much. But if you are storing cash, lot of cash or gold and silver articles or diamond articles, what kind of security will you have? You will have solid grills. You will have 24-hour para there. Or if you don't want to do it, you go and put it in the bank vault. That's what a person of normal business sense would do, or even a common sense would do. Similarly, it depends on the data that you are handling. If your data is something, the leakage of which is not going to cost so much in terms of damage to you or to the person whose data is leaked, it may not be very serious. But if it is so sensitive that it will mean a lot of damages to be paid by you for breach, as well as lot of damage caused to the person whose data is being leaked. Then you have to have the latest available cyber security measures. Now, if you know, the Reserve Bank in its circular says, does not recommend any particular type of cyber security. It says cyber security that is consistent with protection of the data which the financial enterprises handling. Similarly, what kind of this look? It's very difficult for law to define what is the security measure. Law can only say that keep your data secure. Now, the security of the data is proportional to the technical knowledge that you have as of today. Now, the technical knowledge advances every second day. Now, what is excellent today may be turned out to be not so good tomorrow and even useless by day after tomorrow. Therefore, you have to keep pace with technological advance and ensure that whatever is the latest available technology is built in around the data is secure and its security is guaranteed, depending on the type of data that you have. Now, if I am a simple man living in a small house without too many costly materials, I don't want to have everything grilled up and I don't want to have a watchman 24 hours. But if conversely, if I have a lot of money in here or a lot of costly articles, I have to do it. Another issue is, this is again related to the question of what happens to the loss that is caused to the data principal as well as the data fiduciary by way of damages. This can be, insured. If you are a diamond dealer, what do? You insure your diamonds and then ensure that in case of there is a loss, the insurer will pay for it. Similarly, it can be done with data also. Why can't it be? Of course, the concept is new today. So people say, how can you insure data? Well, nothing surprising about it. I remember there was a Hollywood actress who had insured her nose or leg or something like that. If that can happen, if you're a tennis player, you will certainly make sure that your hand is never broken. Similarly, if you're a data processor, ensure that your data is secure and over on top of it, have an insurance policy to cover you. These are some of the methods by which business enterprise. Of course, I do grant that all this means more and more money has to be spent on this kind of things. But that is inevitable in a business. Because as Mr. Bajwa pointed out, the hackers are getting smarter and smarter by the day. So this is a constant race between your security and they're trying to penetrate your security. Therefore, you have to be one jump ahead of that, which is going to cost you more. You have to pay for it and ensure that the data security is maintained and depending on the type of data that you are handling and the consequences that might ensue if there is data breach. That's the way I look at it.
So, Ripu, coming back to you.
So I have a similar thinking too, sir. From a data protection standpoint, also we look at classifying the data from a sensitivity point of view and the impact it has for the organization, and accordingly suggest the right SLA-based technology infrastructure to protect it. Giving you an example, typically something which is not like such a very sensitive, information like a high net worth individual assets for a bank. They are very sensitive. One has to be there, the lifeline for the bank. So if they want to protect their 6 monthly statements of these top high net worth individuals, that becomes very critical because that's a sensitive and these are the high potential customers that you have. You would like to store such sensitive information in a certain set vis-a-vis something else, maybe something like a test environment that you are having something which you're testing for a particular workload, and you may need to keep that data as well. So we have classified in our terminology something called as basic data protection, where we do backup recovery and show those, either you keep it as per tapes or onto disks and you recover from there for operational ease. Slightly more sensitive information, we recommend advanced level of protection with encryption, both applied, at rest, making sure even continuous data protection is given to such data sets. And something which is very, very critical, you can say the crown jewels of the organization, the key customer assets, they need to be protected in a slightly more advanced level, and we call that, put it in an air gap, put it in a cyber vault. so that even if anybody had to do an attack, even within the organization today, there can be an internal threat. Even from there, you can keep them very safe because we create a vault area. And from there, we actually keep running a lot of analytics to make sure that the gold copy is kept safe and it's locked. The new sets are opened during that time, brought into this vault area, checked for a lot of algorithms based on certain data sets that have come in. We run our softwares here, the validation posts happen. We are able to detect the malware. Then we can go back in time and pick the right gold copy because we have kept them in isolated manner. And then bring it back to the main. So it's a very militarized way of keeping in an air gap way. It has been recommended by certain financial bodies, certain regulators, even in US. We follow that to some of the advanced level of sensitive customer data protection. More so, if you see a lot of people today who are dealing with, as I mentioned, RBI will tell you have to keep it safe. Then it is up to the organization how to define that safety and take care of itself. People sometimes follow the NIST framework, which actually goes to say that you have to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So this is the fifth pillar, the recovery. You have to show the recovery. A lot of people in India are now increasingly emphasizing on those recovery SLAs. It's all to do with to what extent can I afford that SLA, or to what extent it's impactful for me. So some data which is super critical, I will keep it in the air gap name. And some data which is okay for me to do a test. Maybe I can regenerate the data, so I did not put that much money behind. So this is how we do. Today, data is moving to cloud. In the cloud, customers feel that, okay, are you really safe? Because they don't have one cloud player, they have multiple cloud players. You need to have a copy of the data at any point of time with you. So giving you full control of your data as it is moving for either processing sake to any cloud, but you should have the copy of your data. As Sir mentioned, you can do your processing anywhere with my consent, but must have a copy. Similarly, organizations should keep a copy of theirs because of recovery needs.
Sure. But Ripu, is there a tool or an index that can measure the maturity of data protection strategies and assess the relative preparedness of businesses?
Across industry-wide, actually, this is what we have done, we call it the Global Data Protection Index. It's a report by a third party called Vanson Board. They did this independent study. So they have classified a lot of organizations based on the confidentiality they don't mention, but there are early adopters, early majority, laggards, and leaders. The good part, sir, is all organizations have found on an average that the rate of incident, which is like either data unavailability, applications are down for say few hours, versus complete data loss, which is an extreme situation. The rate at which the incidents have started happening has gone up between the various studies. So this study happens over every year. Between last year and this year, it has gone up. And it has started hitting new industries. And you said it so well. If you have to measure each organization at what level they are against a certain benchmark in that vertical maybe. A manufacturing vertical could be, I'm just taking an example, could be at an X level of financial, and a healthcare could be at a different level. So are they measuring up to that or not? About in healthcare, there are certain FDA norms which are very strict from a processing point of view. Data security should also have that. And those will be coming in. I am sure more and more action is happening in the data protection arena today. Yeah. And with the combination of the personal data protection law, this will really take the financial.
The moment law comes into place, the basic requirement is the basic norms laid down, the normative values are there in the law. Then you can build around it, make whatever you want, and you comply with the law, and you can even go ahead of the law. Nobody bothers then. If the law says,
correct,
you can have 100 security, nobody will ask you a question. But the law is the minimum. You can't have less than it.
A final question to you, Srikrishna sir. How will the personal data protection bill help businesses and individuals? I know it's a very expansive, comprehensive law, but in a nutshell, if you can just throw some light.
It helps both ways. Now, look at it from the point of view of the data principle. Now, nobody can take my data without my consent. And having taken it with my consent, what do you use it for? Now, at what stage can you say that I'm going to use this data, come out with some other solutions for make a better product out of it? Now, that is something which in the control of the consumer or with the control of the data principal. If he is agreeable to that, then of course, how you will agree is a matter of negotiation and bargain. Now, if I give my data to you and you want to use it for something other than the purpose, then you come back to me and say, give me my consent. And any person will say, all right, I'll monetize it. You give me so much money because I know you are going to make $1 million. Give me at least $10,000. And then you will use it. And that helps you increase two ways. You will increase your constant contract with the customers, constant assessment of the consumer's needs. Where does the market today stand? How do you expand the market? Or should you contract the market depending on the circumstances? How do you take decisions today? You're taking decisions. Actually, how do you take decisions for business? You make survey of the market. You tell your chaps, to boys and girls, to go and make a survey and tell me, is there a good market for this product or not? These are all something that you can sit in your office and do if you have the data available. That is where it's going to be a big step forward to enterprises, as long as the consumer's fundamental right of privacy is taken care of by an appropriate law, which you will comply with.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for. With this, we'll bring this fireside chat session to a close. Thank you so much, Justice B. N. Srikrishna, for sparing time. Thank you, Ripu. Have a nice day.
Thank you so very much for your time and thoughts. It's a pleasure.